Hello, good morning, everybody. Once again, Daniel Spatz interviews. Today, very special guest, Coach Peter Smith, former college coach, very winning person, winning guy. He's a winner, won 5 times the NCAA Nationals for USC here in California. I was here before, guys. Probably you saw me a few seconds ago, but Peter, there you go. I'm gonna give you a welcome. Daniel Barrettieri, how are you doing? Hi, Danny. Doing your fitness. I'm waiting for Peter to connect. Peter, if you're there, you have to accept my invite. I sent it. Are you there? I saw your name. You have to accept the invite. Let's see. It says unable to join. I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna go again live, and you can. You have to accept my invite. I'm sending to you the invite. There you go, Peter. We did it.
Yes, we did it.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you, Peter, for accepting the invitation. You know, it's
Good
a
morning.
wonderful time to talk to people like you. You have to be in my channel.
Yeah, love it. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure, Peter. How is? I mean, I know you're an early bird person like me, so you woke up early today again.
Yeah, of course, of course. I have a great routine in the morning where I get up, have my coffee for 15 minutes, and then I do my exercises for 30 minutes. Then I walk my dogs. I got two great dogs, and watch the sunrise over the ocean. It kind of comes up over the bay in Long Beach, and and then have a little breakfast and come into work. So, yeah. So here I am in my office and at Jack Kramer Club, where I'm the general manager and director of tennis, and really a wonderful place, the Jack Kramer Club in Palos Verdes, California. And yeah, wonderful.
So, Palos Verdes is the city where Pete Sampras
Yeah,
live or
yeah,
work for.
yeah. I mean, it's a kind of it's a very unique club because it's equity owned, which means the members own it, and it's small. It's 256 equity members, some junior members, and some swim members, and it's really a special place. But they've had three number ones come out of here: Lindsay Davenport, Tracy Austin, who still plays on the court, and Pete Sampras.
Wow, what a name, Peter.
Yeah. Yeah, and plus many other top 20, top 10 players. Really a special place.
Peter, how many years in tennis since you first pick up a tennis racket?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, my mom, we redid our driveway. I was living in Connecticut. I was the youngest of five kids, and we redid the driveway, and my mom put a net across it, and it was kind of a perfect little like racquetball, like paddle ball size. But for me, I was about 5 years old, and I just started playing on that and started hitting against the garage wall. And I had three older brothers, and two of them played a lot of tennis, so I was kind of following them around. I had a back then, not many people had two-handed backhands, and I was so young, like kids today. I wasn't strong enough to have a one-hander, and I had a two-handed backhand, and my mother used to say to me all the time, "You play like a girl, stop playing like a girl." Yeah.
And look at if you tell now Rafa Nadal, right? Novak Djokovic, you play
Yeah,
like a
well,
girl.
well, I mean, I certainly would like to play like Iga or Serena. I mean, it was just a sign of the times, and it was pretty funny. But yeah, so
Wonderful, Pete. How good you were as a junior, then heading to college.
yeah, I was pretty average as a junior. It's when I was living in Connecticut, I was playing every sport. I played everything. Actually, played 7 years of ice hockey. Did a lot of skiing, basketball, football, baseball, you name it. I just did everything. And then my dad retired, and my mom wanted to move to a warmer climate. And so we moved to North County, San Diego, and my mom chose La Costa because Pancho Segura was the coach there, and she thought I could work with him. And I remember he was $50 an hour, and it seemed like so much money. And so I didn't take too many lessons from him. We couldn't really afford it. But Pancho really took me under his wing and just taught me so much about tennis. I started coaching when I was 15, 16 to make some money. Pancho gave me that opportunity, but just how Pancho treated people. He was just such a special human, such a great guy. We had so much fun together, and the club La Costa was literally owned by the Chicago mob, if you can believe that. And there was a lot of gambling at the club. And maybe that's why I don't like to gamble now, because I gambled a ton when I was young. And and I was just kind of out there, the members, and Bobby Riggs was there and Lorne Kuehl. It was just I mean, you couldn't have described or had a better childhood than I had. Just some real characters. And Lorne does so much for tennis now, but just to have some of those people in my life was really special. So
And, and
I was an average junior. My parents really didn't have the money to give me the technical help that I needed, and I needed a lot of technical help. So I was just kind of a promising junior. I went to Long Beach State and kind of followed a few friends there, and really, then I started to get some coaching, and Dan Campbell was the coach, and then Larry Easley, and Larry Easley also was Pete Sampras's volley coach. So I was learning how to volley with Pete when Pete was 12, and I would stay after practice and do lessons with him. And then I started to become a good player and ended up playing number one for Long Beach State and playing in the NCAAs and such. But yeah, I was definitely a late bloomer.
yeah, and but you dream were at some point to be a pro, Peter, to
Yeah,
become a
yeah,
pro.
yeah. I mean, dreams are so important for everybody, and I encourage all my students to have dreams and to go for those dreams. I played on the tour for a year. I got to about I think it was 364, I want to say, right around there. And in singles, I was higher in doubles, but I played Michael Chang, and Michael was a young player. I think he was 15. I played him in a small professional tournament in Kansas, and he beat me good. He beat me really good, and I was like, and Michael grew up in La Costa, so he was a kid. He literally lived like 7 houses from me, and I basically said I lost to the kid down the street, the young kid down the street. I'm not good enough. Where in today's world, if you're around 350 after a year, everyone would be saying, "Oh, wow, you're doing so well." But back then, I was like, "Well, I'm not good enough," and I lost to the kid down the street. Little did I know, a month later, he won a round at the U.S. Open. It wasn't such a bad loss, but I said, well, I'm going to go back to school. And incredibly, I left before my parents let me leave before I got my degree. So I went back and got my degree. And while I was getting my degree, my coach, Larry Easley, called me in the office and said, hey, I'm going to quit tomorrow, and I'm going to tell them to hire you. So I had just turned 23 years old, and um, the Long Beach State went for it. And I was taking 21 units trying to graduate, and they hired me as the head coach. So here I was, I was just playing, and now I was coaching guys that I was on the team with, and I just fell in love with coaching right away because I didn't know I had that in me, but I really just loved helping people, and tennis was now my vehicle to help people, and that was very obvious to me how much joy that gave me right away. So I didn't want to go back play. I mean, if I hadn't got that, I'm sure I would have went back out and played again because I really had nothing else. So I always say my career found me. I didn't find it. So it came to me, and little did I know that, I'd meet my wife and coach for 32 years at four different universities and just have a extremely memorable time.
Peter, it's funny because when, as a coach, when someone asked me, Daniel, when you started, right, 40 years ago, I started, what do you teach? Well, I said, I had no idea what I was saying. Honestly, I was too young, Peter. I have no idea what Daniel Spat said when he was 20 and started coaching. Do you remember? What do you what do you do? What do you do that? I mean, I said because we think, right, Peter? We are coaches, right? Coaches. We're 23, 24, but we are not. I mean,
Well, we're certainly, hopefully, we're not like we are today. Hopefully, we
exactly.
have a little bit more of a plan. I have a really funny story. My very first student was Glenn Weiner, who is a great player. He was top 100 in the world. He's from Long Beach. And his mother calls me up, Charmaine, and Charmaine's a wonderful woman. And she called me. I was like a week on the job, and she calls me and she said, "Oh, the last coach, Larry, she gave my son free lessons." And I'm thinking in my head, what is going on? Like, is this part of the job? I got to give free lessons to kids in the community. And she says, and I would like to continue this with you. I would like you to give my son a free lesson every week. In my head, I'm like, what? No, huh? And I said, well, let me think about it. So, of course, I'm, a young 23-year-old kid. I'm putting her on the back burner, and I just kind of don't deal with it. Well, a week goes by. She calls me back. She goes, well, have you decided? And if you know Charmaine, she's very insistent. She comes at me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll teach him tomorrow. And Glenn walks on the court the next day, and I was like, whoa, this kid is really, really talented. So that my private coaching started there. I worked with Glenn 2 hours every day for 4 years. He became number one in the country in the 12s and then number one in the country in the 18s. But they eventually ended up paying me. But it was a very funny way to start. But like you said, I was just out there coaching Glenn like a player, and Glenn was so good that he was able to kind of take what I was saying and make it right.
And how do you later on, Peter? How do you prepare yourself as a coach? Do you study? You read? Do you do some symposiums, courses? How is your preparation as a teacher, as a
Well,
coach?
I think as a coach, you're always watching. I think once you stop learning, then you stop being a coach. And I was just reading this book this weekend, Winning Words by Adam Blitzer, who was pretty interesting. He did a podcast for 10 years and then wrote a book about all the different coaches he coached or he talked to on the pod. But yeah, I think you're always learning. I was really fortunate that I coached college tennis for 32 years. And one of the great things about coaching college tennis was you had time off. You would go really, really hard, like, sometimes, 90 to 100 hours a week. But then you would have December be very relaxed. And then you would go hard in the season, but then really, June, July, August would be more relaxed. So every year I was able to really regroup and, talk to different coaches. I was trying to become the best coach I could be because college tennis is so competitive, and I was asking my players to be better, and I was also fortunate that I could hire consultants left and right. And whenever I was hiring those consultants, I was hiring them for the team, yes, but I was also, hiring them for myself, and just always, trying to get better, always trying to get better. And for me now, I still love to play tennis. I do exercises every morning so I can go through my routine and my day, like today, is a bit of a busy day for me. I have 4 hours of privates and 3 hours of clinics. That's a little busy for me. Usually it's like, 4 to 6 hours a day on court because I'm the general manager here and also the director of tennis. So it's a dual role. So you're trying to, be the GM in the morning and the director of tennis in the afternoon.
Moving fast forward, Peter, do you remember your last match, your last day as a college coach? How do
Yeah,
you feel, Peter? How tell us about your emotions, your feelings?
yeah. It's pretty funny because we lost to University of North Carolina at home, second round of NCAAs, and the year before we had beaten them kind of in their backyard at Wake Forest indoors. And so, I was like, wow, we beat them at a place maybe they should have beaten us because it was more their home turf, and now they came back and returned it to us. But there's always little stories. My son Riley, my middle son, he's getting married in 3 weeks, but his future wife showed up at that match. And I remember her walking up and she was dressed very differently. And she walked down and she was in this kind of yellow uh dress, and I was like, whoa, this is a little different one. I mean, I'm watching the match, but and I'm like, okay, this is the senator's wife. Here she comes. And little did I know, I knew she came out to watch my son play. Well, little did I know that 6 years later they'd be walking down the aisle together in 3 weeks. So, for me, it was a tough day to lose that match, but the losses fade, and you need to take all the great things out of every day. So that's more my memory from that day. More so than the loss. The loss is the loss, and my team played well, but we came up short, and North Carolina was better that day.
So, Peter, you won 5 titles, right? 5 nationals as a
Yeah, we
coach,
won
five
five
times.
five NCAA championships.
Is anyone of these achievements special, or you said Daniel? No, no. Is have the same meaning, the same feelings, same emotions?
No, they're all very different, all extremely different, and all extremely special. And I mean, I think the easiest one is to say, well, we won four in a row. Um, and that was a very incredible day and a very incredible match. But the first one was incredible because it was the first. And the last one was incredible because, we kind of did it. We had Steve Johnson was an extremely special player for us, but also Daniel Wynn, who was also on the team, was extremely special, and they were special in different ways. I mean, Steve got all the headlines because he was one. He won 72 matches in a row. He was statistically the greatest college player ever, and so it was really special to have him on the team. But Daniel Wynn equally won as many matches, and I'm super fortunate to have them both still in my life and see them both on a weekly, monthly basis. But yeah, I mean, the fourth one, we're playing kind of our rival, Virginia, and it was a long match. We had many, many rain delays. We started the match at 12 noon and finished it at 1:30 in the morning. They were trying to play it outdoors because tennis is an outdoor sport, and it's an outdoor championship, but the weather was so bad in Athens, Georgia, that they decided to move it indoors at like God, really late, like 11 at night.
Mm.
They wanted to get it done, and we lost the doubles point. I remember going back to the hotel and telling my wife, "Oh my God, I think we just lost it. This is not good." But we kind of knew Steve would win, so we went indoors, and it was, very tight, packed indoors, only like 1,000 people, and it was overflowing with people, just overflowing, and Yannick Kampman, who's made it as high as 30 in the world, was playing five for us, so pretty good lineup. And he was down 5-4 in the third, and in the other match, we were up 3-2 in the match, but in the other match, Roberto Curas was down a set and a break, and Yannick came back and won 7-6 in the third. And it was just, I just remember mostly being relieved because Steve had come back for his fourth year, and just absolute, complete, total relief, and lots of tears on my hands and knees, and so it was just incredible feeling, to have it last that long and come
Wonderful.
through.
Peter, wonderful stories. So you have three boys, three children?
Yes, I have three boys.
Okay,
Tanner's
all tennis players.
all tennis players. They all wanted to kind of be involved with dad, and that's we still play together. We have a league that we play here locally. The very famous in our area, famous quotes, Wednesday night doubles. So my boys still play together, and they play one. I grew up playing with them, all three of my boys in this league, and it really helped form them. And but yeah, they're super successful in their worlds. My goal for all of my students, as was my goal for my kids, was let tennis make you a better human. Tennis is such a tough sport, and it's an individual sport, and that's what makes it a little unique and special, that it you learn to deal with failure. And the greatest players, you know, for my students and all the students, if you can handle failure, you can be a great player, because really you can see, like, the guys that come back the next day and are not affected by their wins or loss, and they come back putting the work the next day, they become great. And a great story for that is someone like Max Cressy, who was just a okay junior, kind of okay college player, and then he just works and works. But for my three boys, they were all good players, and Tanner played at USC and was an NCAA participant in singles. Riley was, had kind of the best record of the three. He got to the finals of the U.S. Open Juniors in doubles with Brandon Holt, lost to FA and the lefty from Canada in the finals. And so, and then Coulter played at USC and then transferred to Cal Poly Slow. But they're all just really successful humans, and I'm super, super proud of that, that they have a good relationship with tennis, and they still enjoy it. But more importantly, if you ask them, it really helped them become the people they are today.
And do they dream to turn pro, to play pro? Some of one
Yeah,
of your
yeah,
kids.
yeah. Tanner played for about a year. He won some doubles tournaments. They're all big kids, 6'7", 6'6",
Oh,
6'3". A lot of In-N-Out burgers. We ate a lot of In-N-Out
yeah,
burgers as kids.
I
And
can tell. How tall you are,
I'm
Peter?
6'2", but I think
Ah,
the really funny story there is my father is 5'6". So to think in two generations they gained 13 inches
wow.
is pretty remarkable. But my mom's side is German and
Mm,
Hungarian. My wife is 5'11". Her side, she has some German, Norwegian there. So there's some height in there. But
yeah.
yeah, my dad would love how tall they are. That is for sure.
But Peter, objectively, when you were coaching them, now are they're doing what business they work,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
They're all
okay.
real estate,
Ah,
finance. So they're all doing great.
okay. But looking back when they were 14, 13, 12. Do you see any special talent to say, okay, it's tough for you to say who, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but to see, oh, he can make it, he can be a top player in the world. I mean, bro, I'm talking about professional. Do you spot that talent, some of your kids,
Yeah,
especially?
I mean, they all had it. I mean, Riley definitely had the best record. He was, he played 4 years with Taylor Fritz, and 4 or 5 years with Brandon
Uh,
Holt. So he had some good partners. But it takes. I know the backside of tennis and how hard a sport it is to be a pro. I traveled with Steve Querrey and Sam Querrey. I'm sorry, Steve Johnson and Sam Querrey, and it's a really challenging deal. Like, of course, they would have, and I would have loved for them to win Wimbledon or the U.S. Open, of course. But that's it's not always in the cards. Injuries, there's different challenges, and when you're successful, you realize that fortune is a big part of being successful, and many little decisions make for success. And that's one thing that helps me now is I've had just so many different experiences in tennis. It would be hard not to be knowledgeable without the different things I've been through in my career. And also, my wife Tammy would say, I'm the most open-minded person she's ever met. And I've always had the idea that if I can try 10 ideas and only one of them works, I'm 10% better. And if I can get 10% better every year, that's a pretty good way to go about it. So I'm always willing to try new and different things, and that has enabled me for myself to become a real good tennis player in my older years, but also it's helped all of my students, and trying to do that with my students on a daily basis is really enjoyable.
Peter, I'm curious about how do you teach your kids from the technical point of view? Have you taught them? You were the teacher. You coached them. You taught them
Yeah,
how to
my
play.
children, yes.
So,
Yeah.
from the technical standpoint, have you taught them exactly the same fundamentals, or
Yeah, I
maybe?
mean, look, I mean, I think if you watch them play, they're all play a little differently. So I think with my students today, you take what they have and you try and make it the best. But yeah, I mean, look, the standards in tennis are the standards, and I think everybody puts their little twist on it in their individual thing. But the serve, the forehand, the backhand, the volley, there's certain things that are incredibly important in all of those strokes, and technique is everything. And I work with a lot of young kids. I work with a 6, 7 year olds, and I work with 20-year-olds and 40-year-olds. So you're trying to always have those different parts of the technique come out, which are incredibly important. So if you watch like Tanner, my oldest, can hit his serve really, really hard, but it's flat. And Riley, hits more of a spinny serve, and Riley's serve is incredibly effective because he's getting it up and away from the strike zone. So, you just got to take what that person has, what they do the best, and make that the best it can be. And for every player, that's different. But I firmly believe that every player and every student needs to play on every spot on the court. And look, obviously tennis is a very a game that's played mostly from the baseline. But if you don't know how to volley, there are certain matches that it's going to be really important for you to come to the net and volley. So you just never know. And if you have that hole in your game, good players are gonna bring that out.
Exactly, Peter, and yeah, I have some water. Get some coffee. You how many coffees? How many cup of coffees a day you take?
No, I'm not. I'm not. I pretty much wake up ready to go. Look, I really enjoy a good coffee in the morning.
Me
You
too.
know, I'm the type that is going to bed at night dreaming of that coffee because I really like Nespresso, but I like good coffee. I have a certain blend that I put and froth my milk, a little coconut milk, a little regular milk, a little sweet milk, and you pour that in. But like this morning, I only had quarter cup. My wife came down, and for some reason, her cup of coffee wasn't too good. So of course, she takes my cup. Now I gave it to her, so we're sharing a cup. And but yeah, I will have little sips throughout the day. I like to just kind of keep my energy up. So I'll have a little sip of caffeine 3 or 4 times a day and
Okay.
just keep it going.
Good, good. So going back to your children, have you coached them privately, Peter?
Yeah.
Or
I think my big mistake as a dad and as a coach is, I thought I was the best coach. And, and I wasn't trusting other people as
Mm,
much as I should have. And I think if I were to go back in time, look, my kids were coached by many, many different coaches, and I took them to many different ones. But I think if I were to do it over, I would have put them with someone and just let that person be the coach, and I would have been more the dad. Um,
mm,
because at the end of the day, I think as a coach, you have to push your players to a point where, look, I love the majority of the kids I coach. And I only say the majority because the longer I coach the kids, the more I love them, and I will love every single one of them. But I can't say I love them, the first 3 months. They got to earn it, and I've got to earn it also. So, for me, like I never wanted to have a bad relationship with my kids. And when you're the dad, you're so many different things. And at the end of the day, what your kids want the most from you is approval,
yeah,
and they want that approval. And as a coach, you can't give them that approval every
mm,
day, because some days, you gotta want and expect more. And I've told many players, like, I'm not out there to be your best friend. I'm out there to bring greatness out from you. And I'm more of an old school coach where, look, I'm going to do it with love, but I'm going to set that bar high, and I'm going to push you to get to that bar. And, that's going to involve failure. And that's going to involve, coming short, but that's okay. You come back the next day and you keep doing it, and you keep pushing them. And of course, in a very positive way. I'd like to think I'm a very, very positive coach. I really believe that, you got to catch them doing the right things. A coach is someone who elevates people. If you're not elevating them, then you're just a critic. And it's very easy to be a critic in tennis.
mm,
Every parent will tell you, oh, my kid doesn't have a good backhand, they don't move well. Like, telling people what they don't do well is
mm.
is not the way to go. And the kid knows that, the person knows that, and you need to find ways to elevate them. And but you also need to set the bar high. And we're not out there to I have some very demanding drills and some tough drills, and I'm going to expect you to do those drills. And if you don't, like, okay, we'll try it the next day, but we're there to get better.
So you were coaching mainly boys, right, Peter?
Yeah,
Because
I
you
mean,
were
I
you were
coached I coached boys, men, for 32 years in college,
yeah.
and coached a lot of juniors. But look, I coached Eva Jovic, and I've coached many, many girls. To be honest, girls are easier to coach than boys. I mean, boys, there's always kind of this ego contest going on. You're a man, they're a boy. They want to prove that they're better than you. So that's that can be problemsome. And girls will just kind of say, okay, you're the coach, tell me what to do. And that's obviously a little easier. But I the parents here will tell you I'm kind of I'm a little crusty on the outside, and but then I'm all gooey on the inside. So it's you got to get past the crust some days to get to the goo. But with the girls, I mean, I never had a girl, and those girls, I just, oh man, they're so cute. I'll probably have all granddaughters, so I can't wait for that day. And my wife is like, oh, those girls will own you. But I just like coaching. If when I was recruiting, I would always say, if a kid will work hard and listen to me, then we got a deal. And that sounds easy, but a lot of times it's not. And the parents play a big role. There's you know someone like Steve Johnson. when he was in college, he listened to every single word I said. And, you know, his father was incredible that he got out of the way to let that relationship happen. I remember a story he told my wife. You know, Steve Sr., he's no longer with us, but he just was this incredible human. And he was a little crusty on the outside too. But he would come work with my son Riley,
Mm.
and he would tell Riley, well, your dad's working with Steve, choked up talking about it, and I'm going to be here working with you. I mean, that's what kind of a man he was. And I got to the point in my relationship with a lot of my players where I would say I love you to them, but they would also say I love you back. And he told my wife, well, I hear my son talk to Peter, and I know my son loves me, but he never tells me he loves me. But every time he hangs up the phone with Peter, he tells him he loves him. And, you know, and so that Steve Sr., like, he got out of the way to let Steve Jr. and I have that relationship. And that's why Stevie was who he is, because of his incredible parents. His mom Michelle was incredible. So you know, that's it.
Excellent, Peter. And you mentioned recruiting players. Right. In the past few years, the UTR, it's been, the main topic. Everybody's talking about the UTR, obsessed kids, parents. What is your point about the UTR and junior players? What is because they're, I tell you, you've seen it probably, obsessed about, oh, I have to get my UTR better. I have to get my UTR. Yeah, but how about your tennis, right? How about your how about your skills?
Yeah, the whole story of UTR is really sad. Actually, I think it's sad. Um, you know, Dave Fish, who was a long legendary coach at Harvard, he
Mm,
brought UTR to the U.S. along with some other people, but he was kind of the face of UTR, and was in, and they were trying to copy the French system, which is really the best system. France has it right. They have a million club tournaments, and they have these different, you know, ratings, so that the point is not to have rankings, but to have ratings.
yeah.
And so I think if Dave, you know, if you could have gone back 15 years ago when he started bringing it to the meetings in college, talking about it, if he were to, you know, see where it is now, they'd all be very disappointed, because, you know, the kids talk about UTR way too much.
Mm,
And, you know, now I'm on the other side where I'm bringing kids to colleges, and the first question every college coach asks me, and these are my friends, and they say, well, what's his UTR? You know, look, it's like you're dating, and you're only focusing on the looks. And you know, that is not the way to go. And I was not a very good highly ranked junior, so I became a good college player, and a good player past that. So I think I was always kind of not really interested in that. And so when I got to USC, I really only focused on rankings, because Dick Gould did that. And obviously he had more success than anyone, so he could do a little bit more than recruit. He could also coach great. But I had a team that was really, really good, a lot of number one in the country on my team, and they were terrible. So then I stopped looking at rankings. And like for Steve Johnson, he was ranked number 3 in Southern Cal, and Ryan Thatcher and Bradley Klahn were ranked ahead. They went to Stanford, and he became great. Um, so I knew with all of that, it was more about the person. So I really just stopped looking at rankings, and I'm sure all of my guys were ranked high, but on purpose I didn't look at rankings. I looked at results and matches, and watched them play, and talk to them, and, you know, could I make this person click? And we had, you know, we won 5 NCAA championships after that, and that was more important, the person, and how good they could become, not what they did in the juniors. And so this whole UTR thing was supposed to, you know, create more opportunities for kids to play, and more level based tournaments so they could be there. But I don't know. I just think it's gone crazy. I mean, look, now there's so many different rankings and ratings,
Mm.
and UTR is fading a little bit, and WTN is coming up. But you know, look for all the kids and coaches, it's like that's nice, but there's tomorrow, and what kind of game does this person have? What kind of person are they? What kind of grit do they
Mm.
have? What how are they going to react to winning or losing, and the pressure and all of those things? That's more important than yesterday's result.
Peter, regarding the videos, junior players are, the parents are contacting, agencies who, placing the students in the different colleges. They have them making a video, right, with the
Right.
playing, showing them playing and showing. How do you, what is your point about videos? Because they do the best to look good, for the coaches. But how
Well,
important for you is to watch a kid 16, 17 playing in a video for 15, 20 minutes?
yeah, I mean, I think it's nice, but again, it's like looking at a girl, a pretty girl. It's nice, but it doesn't tell the story. You have to go watch them. Look, when I was the coach at USC, I got many, many emails,
Mm.
and I tell kids today, you got about 30 seconds to make an impression. So I would also say the better the video, the worse the player. Put a camera up, have them play a set, and that's it. If it's really well done, the video, then I knew the kid wasn't very good. And so it's the better the production, the worse the kid. So it's a nice introduction. I think it's important, but the coach needs to get out and watch them play.
Yeah. And let's say I'm sitting with you watching scouting, and what do you're taking notes. Let's say you're taking
I'm
notes. You are
not a big,
scouting.
I'm not a big note taker. I'm a real gut guy.
Okay,
Um,
what do you look first, Peter? What do you
well,
what do you
I mean, tall, strong, and fast is always never bad. But I'm looking for how they're moving, how they're striking the ball, how fluid are they. But also I'm looking how do they react when they miss an easy shot. How do they react when they lose serve? How do they react when they miss a break point? Because that in the end is the difference between winning and losing. I've had, look, Daniel Wynn, who was 15-1 in 4 years of NCAA play, was turned down by two great programs, and he came to us, and I had known Daniel a little bit, and I took him right away. But you just you have to see that, and it's really hard to put down. I'm not. Yes, I look at stats. Stats are important, but I'm also looking more at people, and that's more important. But yeah, how well someone moves, how fluid they are, but how are they reacting to the negative aspects of tennis? Because look, there'll never be a perfect tennis match. Um, so you got to be able to handle the tough parts of tennis, and going back to my earlier point, this is what makes all of the tennis players great humans. And but also, tennis can be a very hard sport, and kids kind of get burned out because that's hard to take that failure over and over again.
Peter, if you would have to run a presentation about how to coach perfectionist tennis players, those who have some talent, but they're perfectionist, kind of sometimes negative, pessimistic, but they can hit the ball, they can play. What advice would we give it to the coaches?
Well, my wife is like that. I always say she's she's so competitive she can't compete. It's there is no perfection in tennis. The only perfect you can have is your attitude. And tennis is a very tough sport to play. It's played by humans who are not perfect. It's an imperfect sport played by imperfect people. And so having that attitude of being able to handle the mistakes is incredible. And to be honest, some people can't get past it.
Mm.
So, but just knowing that, like the goals at the end, the goal is to win, but what are the most important things that I can do to get to that win? Because, right, I mean, you can play a perfect tennis match and lose,
Mm.
and you can play really bad and win. So it doesn't really make sense. So in terms of what is my attitude going out there, right? You're going to be super kind to yourself. You're going to, be able to handle the back and forth of it, and you got to have a very short memory. I mean, Pete Sampras said this, and the new soccer series. Ted Lasso said you got to be like a goldfish and have a 6 second memory. You got to have a short memory, and you got to take the good from the past and forget about the bad and go forward. And that's super important. But so I'm going to have a great attitude. I'm going to have, what can you control on a tennis court? You can probably control your serve and your attitude and how you're handling the tough moments in tennis. So everything else is dependent on what your opponent does. That's so it's very reactionary. So those first shots are incredibly important, but attitude, footwork, preparation, finish, those are the controllables. The saying, you got to control the controllables, and you got to let the stuff that you can't control go. So that's incredibly important.
Yeah, and very difficult, very challenging. Nowadays, the kids have really very little tolerance to frustration, Pete, compared with maybe kids 30 years ago. Everything has to go fast. I don't know if you see that change. You have seen that change in the past maybe 10, 15 years in the coaching. Uh,
Well, I think the parents are more involved, and in a lot of ways that's really good, but in a lot of ways it's very reactionary. The kids reacting to the parents and trying to appease and please the
mm,
parent, and it's kind of a tough triangle. And so I think the parents that can kind of stay away, and I don't insist on this when I coach kids. I don't like parents on the court, but there are some parents that can do it really well, but the majority, everybody will have a reaction. It's just human nature. um a few examples, like I coach a boy right now, Indra. His mother is never next to the court ever. She is away, and not watching, and she's allowed Indra and I to have an incredible relationship. And same with Eva Jovic. Her mother and father were never at the lessons ever, and that enabled not only us to have a great relationship, but it enabled that Eva to have this incredible confidence that she has now. And you know you, I think the most important thing as a parent is to try and create a very confident, independent kid. uh, no matter what they're doing in life, those are really important attributes. It's not the smartest, it's not the brightest, it's not the best, but it's the ones that handle the different situations really well. And now I see my kids in the working world where, like my youngest son, he interviewed for a job, and there were 1,500 people interviewing for one spot. I mean, wow. So mom and dad are not on that phone call, and he's 23 years old, and he's got to get it done.
Peter,
Amen. Amen is right. I see that.
yeah, Peter, I'm your player now. Let's play around a little bit. And I said, Coach, I lost my confidence. I can't swing. I can't hit the ball in the match. I can't play the way I practice. How can you help me?
Yeah, I think we got to, I'm actually working with a player right now that had that same exact thing. And we went back to basics, like Here's the first thing in tennis. The first thing in tennis, rule number one in tennis is get the damn ball in, right? And Bjorn Borg said tennis is a very simple sport. Whoever gets the ball over the net last wins. And, obviously that's putting it down in very simple terms, but I think a lot of players are trying to be great before they're good. And so, I just do a little like this is how I mostly how I play tennis. I hit most of my balls cross court until I get a ball in the middle, and then you're in trouble. Then I'm going to take a forehand and I can go cross court or inside out, probably go inside out a little better than cross court, and I'm going to put a hurt on you. And but I'm not losing, so I think a lot of kids are losing. So with that player, I tried to set goals for her that were very reachable, that had nothing to do with winning or losing. If you can play a great match and lose and still be okay. I mean, Bill Walsh, the legendary football coach, he wrote a great book, and the title of the book was "Let the Scoreboard Take Care of Itself." Meaning, like, you run your plays, you do that. It's important to know who you are and how you play, but you gotta not lose before you win. And I know that's using a negative, and I don't like to use negatives, but you know, get the damn ball in, get it cross court, get it deep, get it down the middle. And if you're trying, most of the players, I think they're right before they hit a shot, they're so worried about what their opponent's gonna do, and then, oh, I got to do this. And this is the talk I have with the lunch. Well, I know they're going to do that. And if I do this, they're going to do that. And I'm like, no, you don't know that. You put them in a position to make them hit a shot that's tougher to hit, that doesn't have the percentages. It's the game is very simple at that point. Play the percentages, uh, be aggressive. You have to always be aggressive. You always have to have an aggressive mindset, but don't try dumb shots. I mean, I have so many guys trying to play like Alcaraz. Like, if you play basketball in you're 14, you can't dunk. So it forces you to play a little smarter, hit the shot and hit the pass and do things like that. But, we all watch Alcaraz, and so many of my players are trying drop shots that I'm like, okay, that's great, but it's probably not going to work in a tournament. And I'm a coach that actually works on the drop shot. I think it's an important shot, but use it when you're ready to use it. And all of these games, kids when they're 12, 13, 14, steadiness is going to win. And steadiness will always win, but as kids get older, power becomes more into play and court positioning comes into play. But look, Pancho Segura was my coach, and he was all about like taking time away and getting to the net. And you have to do that. You have to have the ability to do that. But I'm someone who loves to take the ball early, but my players will say, "Oh my God, he just never misses." Yeah,
Peter,
I certainly want my opponents thinking that.
Peter, are you proponent of structuring the players from the tactical point of view? I talked to so many players in my, so many former champions and top players in my podcast, and some of them agree of they have particular patterns placed under pressure to use under pressure, right? They
Of
said,
course,
well,
of course.
so what is your opinion about that? How do you structure? You like to structure your players to do something specific under pressure?
Well, again, it's you know, I have a player that I work with, Andy Johnson, and Andy's hard to work with because he's so damn good. I'm like, oh, the normal player can't go down the line there, but Andy, you can. And yes, you have to, like I said, the cross court, the inside out, playing the ball deep, you know, all of I believe ground strokes. I'm always hitting my ground strokes to try and get a short ball, and once I get a short ball, then I got to put the hurt on them. So I love depth. I love cross court. Um, but taking the ball early, taking time away from your opponent is extremely important, and having the patterns of play that fit who you are. Coaching a 5'10" player is a little different than coaching a 6'7" player. I remember, Max de Vroom was 6'6". He's from the Netherlands playing for me, and he was up in the third set for the NCAA championship and second serve, and I told him to kick, serve, and volley. He was up 40-love. He ended up losing the game, and I thought, wow, we just lost it. Well, he broke back. He's serving 5-4. He's up 40-love. Now it's 40-30, and I thought in my head, we can't lose this twice. And I said, kick, serve, and volley again, and he did it on the second one. But you were playing the percentages there. The person had a little weaker backhand, and Max had a pretty good volley, and so you have to play to those person's strengths. And at that point in the match, I didn't think it was good to sit back and hit a lot of ground strokes. But yes, patterns of play, and like I said, you gotta not lose the match before you win the match.
Peter, you coach adults also?
Yeah, I coach some adults.
Okay, let me put you in this scenario because it happens to all the coaches. The ladies clinic. Every time I run a clinic, hey man, the first problem, Daniel, we lost the match because we went to the net and they hit lobs to us. We got passed by lobs. What advice you give to these league players, enthusiastic, passionate players, but they lose matches because they can't hit an overhead, but they go to the net.
Well, I I coached Juliana Olmos on the tour, and the first thing I told her is, Juju, you need a better lob. And every practice at USC, and almost every practice, my players are working on their lobs. It sounds weird, but it's an important shot that's going to decide 2 or 3 points a match, and that's really important. And once you get it down, you spend like a minute working on it. Like, that's not a lot. But with my ladies clinic, and I coach 2 ladies teams here, and they're great and they're very passionate. We work on the lob every single day, and they look at me like I'm crazy. It's a very uncomfortable shot for them to hit and for them to learn. But sometimes when somebody lobs you, you gotta out lob them. And the bad players get mad at lobbers. Oh, they're just
Mm.
pushers. But what does a lob do? It takes the ball out of your strike zone. I mean, anybody who watches me play or watches my players play, they're not pushers. I want my players to hit the ball. I want my players to play very aggressive, but you got to have that in your back pocket. And so, everybody's looking for a life hack. Everyone's looking for a tennis hack. How do I beat the system? There is no beating the system. Here's what's going to work in ladies doubles is consistency. And a lot of people don't want to like dig in that much. Like I'll point to like women on the team. Like, who do you hate playing the most on this team? Well, I really don't like playing Danielle. I don't like playing Lynn. Oh, why? Because they never miss. So, it's that works at every single level. Um, and yeah, the overhead is hard though. I'm 60 now. Thank goodness I can still hit a good overhead, but it gets harder to get back, and you have to be smart with that. But be consistent. They're going to lob you. Lob them better. It's at that point. It's a rally to see who has better court positioning.
How is tennis in the USA right now, Peter? Since 23, and when Andy Roddick won the US Open, he was the last male to win Grand Slam. Girls, yeah, they won. Serena, Sofia Kenin, Coco Gauff, Madison Keys, right? We have winners on the women's side. But what happened to the men's? Why the men struggle with um, winning Grand Slams or reaching the finals in Grand Slams
Yeah,
the past? Yeah.
I don't know that obviously our results aren't where they want to be, but we had, pretty good player from Spain, a pretty good Serbian, and a pretty good Swiss guy. So, that was like 15, 20 years of their dominance. And now, look, now we got this Italian and we got this other Spaniard that are like, wow. But, you know, Ben Shelton, Taylor Fritz, Tommy Paul, Sebi Corda, Francis. I mean, they're going to, Taylor was just in the finals of the U.S. Open, and I think this is a good group. I really, I think we have a Grand Slam champion, and I do think it's not, look, Yannick and Carlos look, whew, man, they're a joy to watch. I think every tennis player would pay to watch Carlos Alcaraz play because of how he plays, and there's someone who plays from every spot on the court, serves and volleys, drop shot,
Mm.
power, incredible. So I think they're coming, and the commitment to being the best, I think, is there from those guys. Watching them play in Madrid, they're over on in the clay court season, really, getting better. Ben Shelton, finals of a clay court tournament last week. So I think they have the kind of moxie to do it, and I'm hopeful they get it done.
Who is, according to you, Peter, the most complete, well-rounded player in men's tennis in the USA in the present times?
Well, I mean,
They went, sorry,
the X.
Peter, they went closer to Alcaraz, Sinner, Zverev, those guys who are, mostly Medvedev reaching the finals and Grand Slams.
Well, I think the X factor is what in confidence is belief, and I think Taylor Fritz has that in spades. He, maybe some other players do some things better, but Taylor really believes in himself the most. I think Ben Shelton's there. Watching him play last week, getting into the finals, he's starting to hit his backhand better, but his serve and forehand are out of this world, and his on court presence is really great. I mean, I like those two, their confidence the best, that they can handle those situations. I don't think Taylor or Ben ever back down from any of these moments, and I love that.
Peter, do you think the European players have the advantage of growing mostly on clay courts? They defend better than the Americans, even though the Americans players are defending better now, more consistent, getting more balls in play. But looks like to me the Europeans have an edge advantage on the defensive side.
Yeah,
Slices, loopy balls.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think play is something that teaches you, this toughness, this mental flexibility. Like you got to be tough, but you also got to be flexible. And I was watching Madrid this week, thinking the same thing. Like, I think most of the Europeans grow up playing soccer, so
Mm.
you play tennis with your feet and your head, and those are the most important aspects of tennis. And so that's really important. And I also think tennis was played on faster courts 20, 30 years ago. Today, like you go to Indian Wells, Miami, those courts are slow.
Mm.
And so, you know, but again, credit to all these guys that are in Madrid this week playing. I don't know that all the Americans were doing that in the past. And, Ben Shelton has done that every year where he's gone and played tournaments like Monte Carlo, and
Mm.
just the Americans, they just didn't want to be in Europe for 3 months. And you have to have that commitment, to truly become great at this sport. And it's really shifted away from America, and it's more of a European sport. So yeah, I do think they have a big advantage.
Peter, do you teach slice backhand
Of course.
and
Of
forehand?
course. I
Because
I I, I will
le-
I do not teach a slice forehand.
okay.
I look, not to say you'd never use a slice forehand. The thing I don't like about a slice forehand is when that ball is short and low, you better get up to it and put a beating on that ball. You better smack that ball. And I think if you have it in your head that, oh, maybe I can just hit a slice, you don't want that thought. I don't like teaching, never taught a slice forehand, will never teach a slice forehand because I don't like the way it makes kids think. Kids, you have a short forehand, you better put a hurt on that ball. And that's very important that there's no second thoughts. Get up there with your feet, hit it with your feet, hit it with your shoulders, good contact point, but hit it. But yeah, a slice forehand, a slice backhand, I think is really important. You get pulled out wide, change direction, slice forehand down the line. If you're coming into someone's forehand, get it low away from them. I spend a lot of time on that. That's an important shot.
But how about defending? Because I've seen some places they call it squash shot. The Monfils and even Swiatek and also Alcaraz chipping. The wide. I'm talking about defending, no
Yeah,
attacking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, Fed started that, right? He started that wide one. I mean, I hit that shot, and I don't think anyone ever taught me how to do that. You watch Fed do it, and you're late.
Yeah.
And I just think great players kind of figure that out. I mean, I can honestly say I've never fed that ball or worked on that ball with any player. But I know, someone like Andy Johnson does that really, really well. But I do think kids see the pros do that, and it's kind of natural. You have that grip over a little bit. Not that I have a Western grip, but you're late, and that's a really important shot to be able to recover. I mean, I think one of the things that I work on maybe now that I didn't work on 10 years ago are swing volleys, and
Mhm.
getting the person off, especially for the girls. It's such an important shot to get a person late and then smack it and go after it, with the ball in the air. So that's really important, that people, and when you learn how to hit a swing volley, it actually helps your ground strokes a lot too, because it's a natural version of how you should be hitting your forehand or backhand.
Peter, two more questions, and I let you go because you probably are busy with your stuff on the club. I hope you're having a good time.
Yeah, yeah. This, look, I'm the general manager and director of tennis at the Jack Kramer Club. There are so many incredible people here, and we really have a special, unique club filled with incredible members.
Good. Peter, can you teach a player how to win, or that is something comes inborn, something from the play, the person, right? Because everybody wants to win, but not many win.
Yeah, I think I yes. The short answer is yes. I do think some people are are more. Uh, it comes easier to them. Why I don't know why. Like two juniors I work with now, Andy Johnson. I don't really work with Eva anymore, but you know, winning just came to them. Like they were able to problem solve and not get down on themselves too bad and figure things out. But like control the controllables. Like I do think there it goes across the board that kids that struggle on the court are worried too much about the end result. Like you know I I love to compete. So when you walk on the court, there's two outcomes. A win or a lose. But for me, I would rather compete and lose than not compete. That's how much I love competing. And I think when you fall in love with competing, that it puts it into balance. Like you can't control the outcome. So like I get it. We're all going to think about it. It's going to go in our head, but let's focus on the task at hand, and that's winning the next point. That's so incredibly important. So in our drills, I do clinics every day, and winner moves up, loser moves down. And at first kids have a bad reaction to it, but I watch kids practice a ton here, and and they all want to feel good.
Mm.
Like feeling good means nothing. When you're in a tournament, you usually feel pretty bad. Like you got to be able to handle that. And And my drills, if you lose, you're going down a court. And look, I mean, the kids make a big deal about it. It's not a big deal. We're playing the same game. It's just a court down. It's, but I watch kids and they just don't practice with any intensity. Um, that you have to have that intensity and you got to have that love, but you also got to control the controllables. So, you know, do what's right on the court and you'll have a better chance of winning.
Fantastic. I love the when you say it's the same game but one court down, right? Because they have to still.
I mean, it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, last week I just went home. I told my wife, "Man, I had three different people cry today. I that's hard on the psyche. I don't want to see anybody crying, but you got to love that passion. That's passion, and when kids care that much, that's great. But let's steer that passion in the right way. Easier said than done, but yeah, I do think you can teach winning. For me, I learned how to win. I don't think I was a very good winner when I was 18, 20, but at 40, I was a lot more comfortable with it. And I think at the end of the day, it's you you when you go out on a court, everyone wants to know, can I win the match? Do I have a chance? Like that does not matter. But here's what matters. When it's 4-4 and you have a break point, like believe that you belong there. Like no matter what, when you walk on a court, you have a chance. And don't say you don't have a chance because you have a chance and believe in that and when you have a chance, don't be surprised, because that's what I see a lot of kids do wrong, is now all of a sudden they're shocked. I didn't think I could, and they get really nervous. Like the other person on the other side is like feeling the same thing. Have a open enough mind to understand that.
Pete, two more things. Another frequent situation that we face is Monday. The mom dad comes to us said, "Oh, Daniel, my daughter lost. My son. She can't play the same way she trains. I've seen she training very well. She hits the ball freely. She goes for it. But when the match comes, she frozen. She freezes. She can't hit the ball." What would you?
Well, that's tough, and for me, I don't
How do
I
you
don't do
fix
it.
that?
Well, I would say a lot of times that's the parent has a little bit of a role in that. I hear, you know, lots of parents talking about results. For
Mm,
me, we never talked about results at dinner. We never, you gotta dial that down. And that whole dynamic with the parents. I mean, look, parents are incredible. They want the best for their kids, but sometimes they're just a little too close to the situation to be unbiased, right? And I would say to parents all the time, well, is your child improving? Like
mm,
it's a tough sport. Don't let's not look at the end result. Like, are they playing better? Are they doing, what is that? And for me, like if I'm having that issue, I really got to go out and watch the kid play, um, and see that. I remember watching one of my junior players, and I walked up and the dad said, "Wow, this kid is playing great. I mean, he is playing so good. My son can't do a thing." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? This kid has a terrible backhand and he's playing everything to his forehand. Of course the kid's playing great. Let's make the kid uncomfortable and let's do the things the other guy doesn't like." But most of our kids are playing to their comfort level. And, you know, like, okay, what's comfortable? Oh, hitting a forehand cross court for most of us is comfortable. Well, guess what? That's comfortable for the other guy. So let's do something that makes the other person uncomfortable. But so many people are very uncomfortable at being uncomfortable that they don't want to be that way. So, even though they've been trained that way, they get in matches and they want to win, that they stop thinking. And so, you have to either watch matches. So watching matches, films of kids playing. There's a lot of easy ways to watch kids play. So you have to find that. So but also like tennis is a little biased. Like, when a kid is great at 12, they're great. Well, okay, that's not the way in other sports. Or the kid's great at 16. Like, lots of players are developing, and don't knock that kid out that is a late bloomer. I was a late bloomer. And so, just keep on getting better.
Perfect. Peter, and thank you so much for this wonderful talk. And it wasn't really an interview, it was a conversation, right? I guess you
Yeah.
felt in that way.
Yeah, I mean, this has been really enjoyable. and and
Thanks.
and
But
look, I love tennis. I love talking tennis. I love talking about this stuff. This is kind of my world. This is
exactly.
my, our world. This is our little impact on the world that we have today.
But I want you to finish this wonderful time and giving, coaches, assistant coaches, young coaches who dream to be like you one day, winning the national tournament, college, successful college coaches, what they have to take into account, do's and don'ts, Peter, for these young coaches.
Um, Listen more than talk. Uh, Find people that you really admire and go work with them. Um, when I was young, I don't know why, but I drove to Camarillo Racket Club. Wayne Bryan was there. I There's something was about that guy that made me want to listen. When Dick Gould was doing anything, I was watching him. Uh, when he was sitting there having a beer, I would ask him questions, and he was great at answering them. And so I was always trying to be around the people that I thought could make me a better player and sorry, a better coach. At that point, I was really always watching, and I had this wonderful life where I don't know why, but I was put in certain circumstances, but I always tried to make the most out of those circumstances. And you know, if my player lost, I was always trying to figure out why. What could I have done better? But I just think being around good mentors, like when you're in your 20s, don't worry about money. Worry about getting better, worrying about being in a place where you want to be. You're going to make, hopefully good money when you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s. But don't worry, too many young coaches are worried about the hour or making money. It's very easy to make money when you're young and working hard and doing a lot of things, but you just got to get better. That mentality is so important as a player and as a coach. Just got to get better and find the people that will help you succeed.
And Peter, the final advice to the parents that are taking kids to tennis and 6, 7, 8 years old, and they go to the pro, said, okay, look, I want to put my daughter, my son in tennis. Some of them said, just, I want to let them start tennis. Others said, I want them to play college, to get a scholarship. I mean, I can't believe it, but they told me that, Peter. They were 6, 7. I want one day for my daughter to get a scholarship or to play Wimbledon. What would you tell the parents of young kids that
Well,
having their
first,
kid?
first of all, I love those dreams. I love, and I never dissuade people from having those dreams. I think they're very important. But, look, uh, probably, and not until you're 15 does any results really matter. Maybe on the girls' side, they mature a little earlier. They matter. Like, make your kid the best athlete when they're young, before they're 12. Look at, I mean, and these aren't like, I don't, Sam Querrey was playing ultimate frisbee when he was a senior in high school. Roddick playing uh, on the basketball team when he was a freshman in college. Stevie Johnson was an incredible golfer, still is. Unfortunately, kills me. Incredible baseball player. All of these people were playing multiple sports and being successful, and it's very easy to get very like competitive when the kids are young. I mean, I've told this story many times. You know, my kids had hundreds of trophies, hundreds, and we moved from Rossmore to down to Belmont Shore, and my wife is very meticulous and interior decorator, incredible. But she wanted like, okay, go through the trophies. So the kids went through and they got rid of some, and then she said, look, I've had it. I'm done. We got to do something with these trophies. Come in here. Guess what? They threw out every single trophy and they couldn't even remember. Like some trophies were like 5 feet tall and they're like, I don't even remember this. And my wife, of course, would remember every match, knew everything about it. She's so smart and would tell them all everything. But here it is. At the end of the day, they kept their gold balls. Riley kept his trophy from the US Open, but Riley even threw out his sectional trophy. I went and literally dug it out of the trash, and here it is in the office I was like, this thing's beautiful. I mean, look at this thing. I mean, look at this. I mean, I'm
Oh
like, come on, dude.
no,
Like, yes. But I'm just telling you, like, it all seems so important at the time, but it's about, you know, people growing, becoming better humans, better tennis players. And when they're very young, like take the pressure off. Like it's all doesn't, all, you know, yeah, it's meaningful, but like if you're not growing, you're not getting better. And if you're not getting better, you have no future.
fantastic, Peter. Thank you so much for your time. This
Daniel,
interview.
what an enjoyable shoot, hour and a half. Wow.
Yeah, I
Look
never
at
have.
us.
It's gonna be later on my YouTube channel, Peter.
Great.
And I hope I can stop by and visit you and get a
Yeah.
coffee and talk about.
Hey, let's do it. I would love it. And you know, I don't have my glasses on, so I didn't see all the comments, but I
No,
just really
wonderful.
appreciate everybody logging in with all these
Yeah.
great comments. And you know, I really love what you're doing. And so thank you for taking the time to
No,
chat with me.
was fantastic. I learned a lot. Look at what I do. After that, I'm sitting and listening and taking notes
Yeah, hundred
because
percent, hundred
I,
percent.
I I'm learning. These are like a free symposiums courses
I
for
love
me.
it. I
Learning a
love
lot.
it. Yeah,
Thank you, my
thank
friends.
you.
Take care, and I
Have a
hope I
great
see
one.
you soon.
Okay,
Take care.
good to
Bye
see you. Bye bye.
bye, everybody. Bye. See you.
Bye.